Welcome to the Emotional Endurance Movement. This week's episode is dedicated to your one friend who's a little too pinchy on St. Patrick's Day. I don't see any green on you. This is literally my favorite day of the year. No, the rules are simple. You have to wear green on St. Patrick's Day. Otherwise, I can pinch you. Oh, come on. Now you know teal doesn't count. All right, I'll allow the green beer. Don't you know about the history of pinching in St. Patrick's Day? This is important because my mother was a pincher. My great-grandmother was a pincher. Teal doesn't count. Teal doesn't count. My great-great-great-great-grandmother was also a pincher. You're not wearing green. Pinch, pinch. I think I had a few grandfathers who were pinchers. It's a lot for me to know that you don't know about my pinching heritage. Pinchers, pinchers, pinchers. You know the one.
I know the one.
Hello, and welcome to the Emotional Endurance Movement, the only mental health variety show that actually cares how you're doing. I'm Laurie Sharp-Page, your Chief Coping Officer and host, and joining me today, as always, is our perennial contestant, our behaviorist at large, and someone who was at a lacrosse game until 9:30 p.m. last night. It's Crimson McDonald. And of course, we also want to welcome you, the contestant at home, the one who fills out our weekly survey, who comes here to practice their emotional endurance, have a little fun, and is staying regulated, or mostly regulated, in a dysregulating world. You're not just watching this show, you're an essential part of it. Now it's time for our insight of the week, and this one comes from positive psychology pioneer Martin Siegelman. This is one of my faves. He states, when we take time to notice the things that go right, it means we're getting a lot of little rewards throughout the day. Martin Siegelman. Crimson, what do you think?
It's the key to finding joy in the chaos. It's a big part of what we're trying to do with the emotional endurance movement. And honestly, it really came to light when I had kids, and I noticed how much they do take note of the things that go right and how they do lean in on the joy rather than getting lost on the 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 noise. This is a big part of the thought leadership you brought to the board, and I can see a lot of you in this, Lori, because it is true that when you're consciously aware and you're grateful for the good, you get those micro joys that fuel us. I really believe the micro joys throughout our day are what fuels, at least me individually, it fuels me. And I have noticed that I go out of my way to create them by interacting with people at random, complimenting a shirt, thinking about someone's shoe, anything, because it is the rewards I get in my day.
Our brain is hardwired almost to notice the negative 2 to 3 times more than the positive. And if you don't work to redirect your attention, it's real easy to miss things in life. And our feeling of the week this week is luck, and our skill is gratitude. And I think these are both examples of the same idea that Martin is talking about here, which is more about presence and what he's saying. But I believe that the people who see themselves as lucky people and the people that practice gratitude and the people that take the time to notice the things around them and pick up rewards along the day are all practicing the same thing, which is making sure to notice the small things amongst the sea of really big things that often our mind will gravitate to. So in my mind, there's almost a level of like self-discipline with these things. And luck's a complex concept, as we will talk about today. But I think the feeling of luck, people feeling lucky, are really people that are tuned in to all the things in their life. And they are grateful people as well. And they allow those feelings to really take the forefront more than I think the innate anxiety and overwhelm that all of us face when we deal with uncertainty in a chaotic and dynamic universe.
Well, and I think you also can see the dysregulation that can be born from luck not paired with gratitude. You can see the destructive nature of having good luck without being grateful for it.
I think I saw recently someone defined the idea of entitlement as privilege without gratitude. And I think that speaks to this as well, which is that we all get different lemons in life. We get different challenges. And we are also all born with different backpacks of privilege and toolkits within them. I mean, honestly, that can range from having $1 billion trust fund to having parents who knew how to cope effectively and talk to you about these things and equip you from a young age. Even just having parents that loved you, honestly, that's a huge part of this too, is like privilege spans across our lives in many different ways. But to have that level of privilege or luck in order to really have it find a place in your world, it has to be paired with gratitude. Because if not, it becomes almost a self fulfilling prophecy, addictive, I think, even for some people. I mean, obviously, gambling, those are all addictive cycles that our brain can get into because we feel like we've won something, we've got ahead, we found a deal, we're somehow elevated by this experience versus having the gratitude to say, like, oh, like I noticed this good thing in my life and it's a piece of the greater good puzzle. I don't know. Luck's got me thinking a lot of different ways.
I agree, and I mean, I'm not a super person. I've never unpacked luck until we thought about it to this extent. And honestly, I've been thinking a lot with having a teenager or like a preteen that's going into teenage years because I think a lot of our issues is he's just been really lucky. He's kind of floated.
Yeah.
And luck only gets you so far, and the piece he's missing is the gratitude. And that's where it comes off as entitlement versus luck.
It's
Manifest the
also a
many.
developing brain. The idea of gratitude, experiencing gratitude, developing gratitude, cultivating gratitude, all those things, it involves a higher level cognition, a cognition, a thought about a thought, right?
Right.
We have to be realistic about where people are in their brain development, but also this can head into a toxically positive space very easily. But there are also people that never feel lucky. They don't feel like that's part of their landscape, and or maybe that they're not even allowed to feel that emotion. That emotion feels unsafe, right? But there is a part here where hearing the gratitude with it allows it to be not so consequential, if you will, and not so deterministic, right? And not the ultimate arbiter of your value and your worth. It's more of just the experience because we paired it with the gratitude of appreciating feeling lucky or that lucky experience
Yeah.
or
It's
making meaning too
it
about
is
maybe
about
an
making
unlucky
meaning.
experience that became lucky, as we will talk about today.
Well, but I do think this goes back to a lot of your thought leadership, and I see a lot of it in conscious coping in your book, and how the main takeaway is that you need to see the joy, the micro joys in life. It fills your cup. And that is one thing gratitude can do is it can fill your cup and put things in perspective. And so I love this quote and I
Absolutely.
love how it ties back to your book, Conscious Coping. Try to live it. I try to live it every day.
Yes, absolutely. Now it's time for our weekly show and tell. And this one's going to be about getting lucky. Well, maybe not getting lucky, but it's going to be about luck and how luck has presented in our lives. So I'm going to hand it over to Crimson. And Crimson, tell me more. Give me the show and tell scoop on luck in your life.
Well, I was very pushy about putting the show and tell in because I think you and I both struggle finding the things that we got lucky with. Because when you're rooted in hard work and you've built a lot of what you have, it feels like luck doesn't really happen. So I had to really dig deep, but I found hold on. Sorry, let me get okay. I had to dig deep, but I found what I feel most lucky about, which is my house. We had lived in the same house. You remember my old little house for 13 years. It we needed an upgrade. We had another kid. We knew we were going to need an upgrade in terms of square footage and bedrooms, But in Fort Thomas, an upgrade isn't just like one minor hop. It's like you had to double your investment. So it took a long time. We went and looked at a beautiful home, and an offer got put in and it sold. We moved on. But then something happened. It fell through. The seller came back and said, if you want it, let's talk about it. Well, at that point, the reality hit me that we could maybe have it. But luck was not on my side when I talked to my financier. And he was like, no, like that's above your limit. So I did something unlike me, which is I just lowballed it. I said, screw it. I want this house. We're in love with it. But these people will be crazy to take this offer. They took it. And I have never had that kind of luck in my life. With that said, there's consequences to luck. There's a great Florence the Machine uh, quote about miracles, and their timing can be inconvenient. And this was one of those moments. So part of the agreement was we had to close in 15 days, which means we had to move 13 years of our life in 15 days. And it was all worth it, because what I learned is that this house and this investment, it wasn't just about moving homes and getting a few more square feet. It was that we became in walking distance from everything. We're right by the park. Our kids switched to elementary schools. It was a chance for him after COVID to reboot his whole social system. We made a bunch of friends that are now like ride and die people that are part of our village that really lift us and keep us going. And so really, I think after COVID, not many of us felt lucky about much in life. And I really challenged myself, which is what story brought to light something I didn't work towards. And of course, financially, you work towards a house. But what I didn't work towards is what came beyond the financial investment, which is the community that came with the home. As you had mentioned, I was at a lacrosse game until 9:30 last night. But I was there with my community, and we were there together, and we share the load of practices. And I told my husband the other night, I can't imagine what would have been our lives today had we not we only moved at 1.2 miles from our old house, but it changed our life so much. But the biggest part isn't just the square footage, it's that our house is now the center of our community, and it's given us community. It's become a home for everyone. It's kind of the gathering spot because we do have the square footage, which is hard to find in our community. And it's become the first thing in my life that I feel like I unintentionally got. Um, yeah, we worked hard for the money to get the house. We're still working hard to pay for the house. But what we didn't expect and what we got lucky on was the community. And I hope for everyone that
And you
they
just
get the village.
really never know with that sort of stuff. You never know what your neighbors are going to be. It is really like putting yourself out there and seeing what comes back. And I mean, I love the house. The house is beautiful, but you're right. Like the bigger story is the community. That's pretty
Yeah.
freaking cool.
Yeah, and I really just, as life gets harder and kids get older and schedules get harder, um, I just am enormously grateful, and that's our skill, because it is very hard for me to process that kind of luck without thinking something horrible is going to happen. And so I have to lean on gratitude often, and that even if it ends tomorrow, we had it today,
Yeah.
because it's been such a unique and fun chapter of life to have like a community of people to experience raising a kid with. And we have no family really that's involved in our day-to-day lives. And so to have friends that are like sisters that are mostly like aunts to my kids, and to have that is just, I know that I worked towards it and investing in friendships, but it hasn't felt like work, and it's been fun, and it was unexpected. It was built.
Meaningful.
It's been meaningful, and it's been the best part of the parenting experience outside of the cute cuddles and all of that, is that by buying a home in a different, the text of one person reaching out and saying, "Hey, come to my party on 4th of July," completely changed the trajectory of the quality of life we have and the support structure we have.
I love that. I aspire for the same thing. I
Yeah,
love
your
that for
kids
you.
aren't in school yet, so I mean,
Oh, they're in school.
not like in
School is school in my life,
school is school in
girl.
your life, but you're not like in it yet. I mean,
No, I mean, like, I have like maybe like 4 more months, and then
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
first
fully in
grade.
it.
Yeah, you'll be in
Yeah.
it. Yep. That's when you'll start needing that community and finding it.
All right. Well, I love that for you. I think that's great. That's a great show and tell. Mine is much simpler and shorter. In you mentioned conscious coping. Conscious coping, my first book. It is all about my theory of how you can really take care of your mental health by paying attention to how you cope and coping with intention. Go check it out. It is awesome. In the book, I talk about how when I was younger, I was privileged enough to travel a lot with my family. We lived in Asia for a while, and we would take these like long transcontinental flights. And sometimes we would also travel a lot in Asia because that was part of like the experience. It was a great experience. And we would always travel this one specific airline that had this one very specific smelling soap. And in the book, I call it my memory soap. And it's just become this really meaningful thing because I'll find it randomly. I have no idea what the soap is. I only know it by scent. I'll find it randomly. And it's just this like fun, like, it's the memory soap, you know? It brings back a lot of good memories, makes me smile. Even just talking about it makes me smile. And it's soap you will find in so many different places, but you don't find it often. So it really you can find it I found it many different places. But last week I was at an Embassy Suites in Dublin, Ohio. Shout out to the Embassy Suites in Dublin, Ohio. Y'all took such great care of us in the conference there last week.
Beautiful.
And I was about ready to go on and I go to wash my hands and they had memory soap. And I felt really lucky that I had that moment. It was just a really nice moment for me before I went on the stage and before I, did my work. Just a good reminder of like the memories here and the legacy I hope to leave my kids is reminders like these, you know. Um I don't know, just really meant something and I felt really lucky in that moment. It's a really simple thing, but it was a moment where I did feel really lucky.
But that goes so back to the quote, our insight of the week, right? How
Mhm.
it is those micro moments of joy, and it are those. I mean, we talk about triggers, and I think when you hear the word triggers, it's a negative connotation, and it's
Yeah.
not. You can be positively triggered by things like that. I mean, anyone that's had a baby, like smelling a baby's head, it triggers back all of those baby memories,
Yes.
right? So there's
Right.
like almost those universal happy triggers, but stopping and taking note of those fills your cup. To your point, it was preparing you to get on stage. It was a good moment to take a deep breath and to reflect on the good stuff. And I love when things like that happen. You can call it nostalgia, you can call it whatever, but I call it micro joy moments because it's nice being grounded back to a moment that was positive.
Totally. I mean, I think I kind of am starting to think about it like it's a little bit like a video game, you just collect these things throughout your day. But you have to pay attention, you have to be present, you can't be dysregulated. Like if I was like totally amped up, like negative self-talk spinning out, I mean, I don't think the soap would have I'm not even sure I would have noticed it,
Right.
Like you got to take like but even if I did, I don't think it would have had the same. It would still would have brought me some good memories, but I don't think it would have felt as meaningful. So it is those little rewards, those little bonuses along the way. Awesome.
Those are good memories.
Very good memories. Thank you for sharing. Now it's time for our emotional weather report of the week, where we ask Crimson what exactly is in the air for our emotional endurance movement members. So, Crimson, how's everybody doing this week?
Well, I'm happy to report that emotional endurance is up this week. Not only is our movement growing, but we are seeing better results. Among our movement, we are seeing an emotional endurance index of 67%, which is up almost 6 points from last week. But that still means 2 out of every 3 of us are struggling with the capacity to get through the day. So the skill or the score went up, but the margin's still thin. But let's unpack why we're seeing 67% in our index. Our index is made up of our psychological capital score. And if you look at our psychological capital, we are seeing optimism at 76, hope 72. And both of those, optimism is actually up 10 points, which is the highest of the year, while hope is also up another 8 points. And so we saw this trend. And so for 2 weeks now, we have been seeing a trend up for hope and optimism. But for some reason, we're not seeing resilience go up. Resilience actually dropped 5 full points this week while everything else went up. And so I guess we're not springing into spring like we had hoped to, or maybe we're not springing out of winter as we had hoped that we would. When we are struggling with resilience, we can show up dysregulated. And where are we showing up dysregulated? Unfortunately, a lot of us are showing up dysregulated at work and at home. Dealing with our finances also came in the top 3. Dysregulation at work is a problem, and that's part of what this movement is about. Even if our cups are empty and even if we are struggling, we have to learn how to show up regulated. We have to hardwire that resilience in. And so what doesn't get processed at work gets processed at home, as we all know. So these things would be correlated when things are getting really rough at work. So people living with high functioning people are quietly falling apart and they're feeling it. And so we need to think about how to get out of this trend and how to break the cycle. So let's talk about how we're filling our cups. So to fill our cups in the past week, a lot of us reached for our screens, vegged out, and went outside and hopefully exercised because that one dropped off the top 3 list. None of these are wrong. They all make sense when we're feeling tired, and that might be why we're feeling less resilient. But this is what the data is saying. We are refilling and still coming back a little depleted there. So our nervous system doesn't recover by doing nothing. It recovers by doing something safe. And we're doing a little bit of that. But screen time and vegging out might be becoming unhealthy coping skills when done too much. And our movement is reporting a lot of coping and filling our cups through these mechanisms. So it's not about they're wrong. It's about being aware and the intention behind it. So if they're filling your cups and you're reporting it as so, that's fine. All right, let's go into our emotional endurance movement advisory. Spring ambition trap. So what do I mean by that? Feeling like because it's spring, you're just going to be motivated. Your standards are just rising higher than your capacity. So it goes back to how do you build that capacity to meet your new standards for the bandwidth you want to have to enjoy your spring. The other thing worth noting is the resilience debt that we're reporting. You may need to fill your cup before addressing problems. So it goes back to how are we filling up our cups effectively? Because we're not reporting the resilience we should. So maybe, numbing out on this one isn't going to work for us. Which brings us to our challenge of the week. I was thinking about what can we do as a movement to help restore ourselves. And I want all of us to do one restorative activity that's attached to zero productivity. And that is going to be hard. I have not figured out what mine is, but we will report back next week on what we did that was restorative and had zero productivity attached to it. Mine's probably going to be a dance party, just a preview. But that also is a very common one. So I recommend everyone Just try to think of something that you can do for yourself that has no return. You get no check in your box. You're just sort of doing it to do it. And then in closing, so ultimately, the gap between how ambitious we're feeling right now and how much our cups are filled is quite large. So let's try to lower expectations or fill our cups a little bit more. The sun's shining, illness is dying down, we're feeling good. But the problem is we're not filling our cups up enough to meet all of our expectations. So good luck. And don't forget to take our survey next week and be part of the movement again.
Yeah, I liked what you said about like you may have to rest and restore before you intervene in the problem. And I do think that we are all like chronically exhausted right now and there's so much stuff going on. And I think there's a lot of tension right now because like what do we do? What do we do with all of this? And I do think that it's going to require all of us to like restore ourselves a little bit, right?
We all need,
And build up the
yeah,
emotional endurance
yeah,
to
build up those
have some real
core,
conversations.
yeah, the core components. You need to build up hope and optimism. And we're doing pretty good with hope and optimism. I'm kind of surprised by that. But I think we're tired of having to be resilient.
I think the resiliency of just everyday life is one thing. I think we're also dealing with some unprecedented circumstances. Well, maybe they're precedent, but they're increasingly escalating situations. So maybe part of the novelty of it is impacting our resilience, or maybe we're just tired of literal decades of increasing wackadoodle wackiness. Gosh, that's a sanitized way to talk about this, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, what you're saying, girl. So that's it for the forecast. Let's hope next week we see our resilience go up a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Crimson. And now a word from our feeling of the week, lucky. Now, lucky is a funny emotion because most people don't think of it as a feeling. We think of it as an outcome, but there's actually is a feeling associated with luck. It's that moment when something unexpectedly works out, when the timing aligns, when the outcome is better than you could have ever expected, when something goes right that easily could have gone wrong. The feeling of luck tends to bring a mix of emotions with it: gratitude, relief, maybe a little awe, and sometimes maybe some humility. But there's another interesting thing about luck. Some people do experience it more often than others. I don't think we need to sugarcoat this. And there's research to suggest that people who notice these opportunities, who stay curious and remain open to unexpected opportunities, tend to experience more quote unquote lucky moments in their lives. Not necessarily because the universe favors them or there's some grand plan for them to be luckier than you, but because they're paying attention. Now, I can't say that this sums up all luck, and certainly privilege has a part in this conversation, but I do know that paying attention and looking out for these things, those little moments of joy, meaning, connection, relief that we find in our life, is a big part of how you build your emotional endurance. I hope this year you are lucky enough to be able to learn these skills and find more moments of joy, meaning, connection, and relief in our lives, because it shouldn't just be the lucky ones who do this. It should be all of us who are able to do this. And that's all from this week's Feeling of the Week, Lucky. Our first game today is called Luck or Something Like It. Sometimes it's just weird timing, and sometimes we realize that bad luck actually turned out to be good luck in the end. So we'll spin the wheel and reveal the prompt to talk about how luck, or the absence of it, has shown up in our lives. Crimson, are you ready to test your luck?
Hey, let's do this.
A random meeting that changed something important.
When my firstborn was 5 and about to go into kindergarten, I was freaking out about gun violence because he was going to school. And I went to a Moms Man Action meeting only because I had just had my second and it was around the corner and it was an excuse to like get out of the house. And I felt like it was a healthy venting of my anxiety about the incoming new pressures of sending a kid to school. And they immediately were like, hey, do you want to start a chapter in Northern Kentucky? That'd be like totally cool. Like, we have one, they need help. And so I did. And it completely changed the course of my life because they taught me skills I had never known and opened me up to networks of people that are fabulous and wonderful and have become mentors. And yeah. So that meeting completely changed the course of my life in a good way.
It's a great one. Yeah. I do think experiences like that, like working with organizations that want to lift up and connect and build these networks around greater causes, are awesome places to really like invest a little and get a lot in the long term. So I'm glad to hear that you had that experience. Mine for this is a little different.
Okay.
I met one of my best friends at a bus stop. And like, I'm not even really quite sure how this happened, but within like 10 minutes, we realized that we should be friends because we were both interested food deserts and insecure
Sure.
access to food systems and stand-up comedy. I don't know how we got to both those points like so fast at a bus stop, but literally like we're waiting for the bus gets there. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 15 minutes. I don't even remember waiting that long for the bus. And as we are sitting down on the bus, it's like, wow, we both have these two things in common. We should be friends. You know, we make friends how we make.
It's great. I think a moment
that
where
to me?
gave you a chance.
When I was a school-based therapist, part of what we did on our teams was if there was a crisis at a school, which unfortunately usually means there was a suicide or sudden death, the crisis team would be called in and we would basically have like there'd be 8 to 10 of us and we'd be the crisis counselors on call and people could just come talk to us as needed. And when I first started at that job, I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't think I could ever do that work. Like it feels so intense. And by the time I left, I was actually the supervisor of that group for Hamilton County, which is it's a large county. We covered a lot of ground and we went to a lot of different crises. And the reason why is because someone gave me a chance to just try it and not feel a lot of pressure. I don't even think I was really asked to see clients the first, well, they're not really clients, but to assist people the first day. I was more there just to kind of support the team, but I really enjoyed it. I found it really purposeful work. And because I was given an opportunity to really dip my toe in first, I went from something that I thought I could never do to something that it's really like a feather in my hat professionally. I'm very proud of it. And it was because somebody gave me that chance to try in a way that felt safe and comfortable with me that I realized it was something I was capable of and wanted to do more of.
That's awesome. Isn't it amazing how the people around you lifting you really do change your life?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a privilege to have support around you. It absolutely is 100%. If you have any support in your life, whatever format that comes in, that is a space to cultivate gratitude.
This specific one, the moment where someone gave you a chance, everything about my life goes back to this core thing because I mean, I came from nothing. I have no name. I have no family dynasty. I had no money. I had no privilege. But what I did have the privilege of are amazing people along the way. And another game, I'm going to talk about one of them. But I know for me, I was given a lot of leadership opportunities early in my career by managers that really believed in me. When I joined the Democratic Party, they believed in me and gave me the chance. When I went from survey research at Ipsos to advertising, I really was not qualified for the job. They believed in me. They gave me a chance. They just were like, you seem like a hard worker. So this specific one is something I agree with you. I think a lot of people take it for granted. And when you hear people say that they're self-made, it's such an insult because it's so rare that that's true. The other thing I want to unpack with this specific a moment where someone gave you a chance, as millennials become the older generation, we cannot repeat the mistakes of those before us, which is pulling up those ladders of prosperity and opportunity that were there for us. I think we are the last generation, and I mean older millennials, not all millennials were given this, that had a little bit of that ladder to kind of hang on to. A lot of my successes were because a little bit of that ladder was left hanging. I don't know that my children will have that. And I know my personal goal is that one day somebody at this age is talking about when someone gave them that chance and that person's me, because that is really important to me. And I try to live this and try to elevate those around me. It's a value so near and dear to my heart, purely born from gratitude of those that did it for me.
Absolutely. And I want to say, if you're listening to this right now, you are also giving us a chance and thinking about how these things impact your life, and that is changing our life. So
Right?
we really appreciate that. Now it's time for a word from our skill of the week, gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most researched emotional regulation tools we have. And it's not surprising, because the seeds of joy have been found to start with gratitude. Because gratitude isn't about pretending everything is good. It doesn't just whitewash the situation away. It's about finding the little bits of good within it. Intentionally noticing. When we're intentionally thinking about our gratitude, we're doing something very specifically neurologically. We're training the brain's attention system to scan for supportive experiences instead of only scanning for threat, which is really our default mode. Over time, this changes how we interpret our lives, our relationships, and yes, even our goals. The interesting thing about gratitude is that it doesn't require big events. It actually works best with small doses. A conversation that went well, a moment of quiet, someone showing up when you needed them most. Even just realizing that something didn't go as badly as it could have. Gratitude expands the number of moments our brain recognizes as meaningful. And when those moments add up, they build your reserves, which builds more emotional endurance for you. And that's all from this week's Skill of the Week, gratitude. Our final game this week is called Accidental Gratitude. This is where we name things that we were maybe not grateful for at the time. They were probably annoying, uncomfortable, or unexpected. But later, something about the experiences shifted how we saw it. Are you ready to get started, Crimson?
Let's do it.
All right, give me your first one.
My first one, it was my mentor. So the hardest class that I ever had at the University of Kentucky was Professor Stephen Voss, and I wouldn't even name him, but he'll never watch this, so I can talk mad smack about him because he ain't gonna watch this. He was so hard in every sense of the word, and he pushed me in a way that at the time felt unfair. Like, I remember the first class, it was just like, God, what a pompous academic ivory tower dude, you know? And it was like, I would say polarizing human, but that would assume 50-50. And I'm trying to be kind here, 70-30. Like 70% of the class, like, what? And 30% was like, oh, well, I was in the 30%, right? Because this goes back to, I love the challenge. I especially hated myself when I was 18 and walking into college. And so I saw somebody ready to hate me more than I hate myself. And I leaned in, Laurie. I just leaned in. And at the time, it was just like, ugh, like, why am I doing this? And why is he putting me through this? But he ended up becoming a great friend, mentor. I respect his opinion on everything. I go to him in many chapters of my life. He has been a constant. He is always there for me. He is my biggest cheerleader. I'm fairly confident he despises almost all of my values, probably, or my positions on policy. But he has always pushed me to be my best self. And so, unintended gratitude for the ethical asshole of my life that I will keep close until my dying days, because you should always have someone that's gonna keep it real with you, you know?
Yeah,
It's important.
absolutely. The first time I did stand-up comedy and I did an open mic night, I walked directly off of the stage after doing like a pretty good job for my first time. It was pretty good. I was feeling pretty good. I walked directly off stage, and when I did, I tripped and I fell flat on my face. And that was tough. because everyone laughed, but like not for the reasons that I wanted. It has over the years become my superpower because I am like not intimidated by open mic nights anymore.
Yeah,
Because
you
I
went
lived
through
through
the
that.
fire.
So I'm
That
very
is
grateful.
hilarious.
As long as I can get on and off the stage, I think I'm doing all right.
Okay.
Other one?
My dog. I'm accidentally grateful for my dog. So I was extremely resistant, as you know, Lori. Extremely resistant. And the reason we got a dog was because my husband respectfully came to me and said, I don't know how to meet my emotional needs given the boundaries you have set, which is a very mature way of saying, I want a dog and let me get a dog. So I said no. I was a hard no. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to get divorced. So fine, find a dog, whatever. Super resistant. She's my everything. I love that dog so much. I'm so grateful that my children get to have such a wonderful childhood dog. I am so grateful that I get snuggles. I am so grateful when we get done recording, she will be right there ready for hugs. And she was my biggest accidental love of life.
I mean, it's a good thing Scout can't listen to the podcast.
Oh, I tell her all the time. And when she was a puppy, I would be like, are you ready to be rehomed? Do you want to be rehomed? And the kids would be like, you're so mean. I'm like, she doesn't know what I'm saying. So yeah, I was very resistant. I'm telling you, but that's why it was an accident to be grateful for it because I was so resistant, Lori.
Absolutely. I just got back from a busy week of traveling all over. If you heard last episode, I had some adventures and I became accidentally grateful for boredom. Just boredom. Give me bored. I just want to be bored. There was too much going on.
It's a good
So
one.
I'm finding myself grateful for that this week.
That's a really good one.
That's all for this week's episode of the Emotional Endurance Movement. If today made you notice even one small thing that went right in your life, then great. You've already started practicing building your emotional endurance. Before you scroll away, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. And don't forget to fill out our survey so you can be part of our emotional weather report. Join us next week on the Emotional Endurance, where you bring the feelings
And we bring the games.
Bye.
Peace out.